Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa and China, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south. In the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful November the 14th, 2019, Grando Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, we're doing well here in the South as the Northeast is all mesmerizing now. They don't know what to do, whether to watch the Steelers, whether to watch the Pittsburgh Panthers,
Yep.
the Philadelphia Flyers playing football and hockey up there in the Northeast.
Yeah, they don't know what to watch, and that's why they created the shine, so you can't tell if you're watching it or not, Big C. It's all fair in love and war. I'm telling you, it feels like wintertime in California. It's about 71 degrees, Big C. I hope a lot of people don't get mad at the people in California, but we're hoping and praying for rain. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but it is starting to change the seasons. Also, as you mentioned, some football going on back in the Midwest, if you want to call it, or the Northeast, however they want to label it. But in Cleveland, they have a chance to play the Pittsburgh Steelers. Also, some good old boys from baseball being named MVP. And, of course, I think Paul George is making his debut in town down in New Orleans. I hope they didn't feed him too much Southern fried food, Big C. It's all fair in love and war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. So, Big C, with so many sports to watch, it's kind of like being at an amusement park. There's so many rides. You can't ride everything, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, that's the greatest thing about sports, Charlton. If you're disgruntled in one, you can flick the channel and go to another. But to have options is like life. You don't want to settle for just one thing.
Yep, that's why they have internet dating, Big C. You got 20 dates in 1 month. A lot of guys are just doing it. It's so crazy. Maybe I'm missing out, Big C. I do want to say Big C Sports brought to you by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Also, Big C Sports, you can follow us on Xfinity Comcast Television, plus launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and other smart TVs all over the universe. I know everybody has whatever makes their boat float. The holidays are coming up, and everybody's getting ready to... I guess the turkeys are sacrificing their souls for our gluttony, Big C. But there's a lot of people who don't have a place to go for Thanksgiving. And sometimes that comes out this time of year. A lot of times people have issues. We have a national suicide hotline number that we give out for military veterans and also civilians because people need help. And as much as the holidays are happy, it's also a sad time for a lot of people, Big C. They can call 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255, or they can text 838-255. That's 838-255. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, as you spoke about it, we're coming up on that holiday time of the year, Charlton, with all the hustle and bustle, is that people forget to pay attention to others. They forget to check in on others. And the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, was laid out for our military veterans who suffer from this horrific disease of suicide. Almost 20 a day are lost in America, Charlton, from this disease. We have to find a way to stem the tide of this disease. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is there for these veterans to speak to, for anybody to speak to, Charlton, who's going through emotional and mental crisis.
Yeah.
Just need to have somebody to lean on. People in the military come from such a large institution of family, Charlton, that they always have somebody that they can count on each day, somebody who has their back. But once they leave the armed forces, Charlton, that support group is generally gone.
Yeah.
They find themselves on their own. They're struggling to adjust back into society. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, is there to help those people adjust back into society, to give them somebody to talk to give them an alternative to turn to, somebody who can understand the plight that they're going through, Charlton, and not be judgmental.
Yeah.
So anybody who is going through emotional or mental crisis, Charlton, in America, don't hesitate and call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, because the life that you save may be yours or somebody that you love.
800-273-8255, 800-273-8255, or they can text 838-255. That's 838-255, and they can get some help. I know a lot of people love a lot of things that's going on in sports, and I want to just open up with this thought. I know I was talking about I know men and women. I got a lot of friends that I meet in media that are dating online now, and I know there's so many websites, and I'm not even being flippant about this. There are people who will pay to meet a stranger. They don't know about their background, but they'll pay to meet those people as opposed to meeting people that they know in their own circles. Big C, have I been asleep or has time changed overnight? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, heck, Charlton, I do that every time I go through a restaurant. I go through a drive-through window. I'm paying to meet somebody I didn't even know.
Yeah, but you're trying to get something to eat out of it. I just think it's a new gold mine, and because someone invited me to meet something, and I'm like, no, I don't want to meet nobody I don't know. That's just my own opinion, Big C. But when it comes to meeting people, Colin Kaepernick, I was so, sometimes you hear something and you say, well, that's just somebody's opinion. But I hear, again, Big C, I think our society, if I can just narrow it down to black and white, we still don't see reality the same. Because I hear a lot of my brethren, Caucasian brethren, on radio, not as much on TV. You can hide on radio, can't hide on TV. But they're saying how I would never give this guy a job. I would never hire him because he didn't stand for the flag. And I wonder if white men had a history of being lynched, racially profiled, ostracized from employment, the slavery, the Jim Crow, and all that garbage. You have to be the dumbest person in the universe to not know about that. But I know a lot of guys don't read. So when a talk show host in a major city in Northern California will get on the air and say, I would not hire that guy because he did not stand for the flag, are there still a lot of dumb guys with the jobs on the radio, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, look how many people that are employed in the NFL because they did not stand for the flag. Colin Kaepernick brought a plight to the American public. And one of the things the American public doesn't want to do is that they don't want to air their dirty laundry, Charlton. They don't want you to call them out for the atrocities that have been done because you look like a certain sector in society.
Yeah.
Colin Kaepernick did nothing wrong. He exercised his First Amendment right, Charlton, is what he did. He toed the line of the Constitution, is what Colin Kaepernick did.
Yeah.
And you have people that are appalled because when a black man makes a white man feel uncomfortable, then he's being aggressive.
Yeah.
That's just the state of mind of America. If a black man makes a white man feel uncomfortable, then he's aggressive and he's crowded into his space. And what Colin Kaepernick did was crowd into the minds of America.
Yeah.
He made America look at what they didn't like about themselves, social injustice. As long as you don't talk about the elephant in the room, he becomes a mouse.
Yeah.
Colin Kaepernick became the elephant in the room. White America became uncomfortable with it because what they were doing behind closed doors as far as racial profiling, racial segregation in America, Charlton, no one was calling them out on it.
Yeah.
But an athlete on the biggest stage in America, the NFL, called out white America, and they became very uncomfortable with it.
Well, today is November 14th, 2019. In the land of the free and the home of the brave. I live in Northern California, and one of the most, I guess, liberal states, or you could say friendly states where people interact. I got pulled over the other day just driving. I'm in a nice neighborhood, but I've been here many years. And there's something about intuition that some of my white brethren don't understand. As I was pulling up to a stop sign, the patrol officer pulled up, we were going to pass each other in the middle of the night. In my gut, now this is how you know you're present. In my gut, something thought, I'm about to get pulled over. I came to a complete stop. In fact, I stayed at the stop sign for about 3 seconds as opposed to that 1 second and take off. So there was no way I got a rolling stop. I go up about a block. I go to the light that was turning green for me to turn left. And I knew in my gut something was going to happen. I didn't see it. There was nothing to tell me about it. But I kept looking back in my rearview mirror. Out of all the cars on the highway, here he comes speeding around the light. And he pulled up on me, followed me for about a good 2 minutes, and then he hit the lights. So I happened to turn on my flashers, and I pulled over into a gas station so everybody could see what's going on. And the point of the matter is, my car's registered, my driver's license is valid, and there was nothing wrong. So he walks up to the car and he says, "How you doing?" And I said, "Good, officer, how are you doing?" He said, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" I said, "No." He said, "Driver's license registration." Long story short, he kept me there for 5 minutes, and I happened to call 911 myself, like I tell people to do. But for 5 minutes, he kept me there, and then he walks up to the car, tells me, "Have a nice day." Didn't say why he pulled me over, Big C, but I called 911 too, and he said, "Have a nice day." Long story short, I hear a lot of white brethren on the radio saying, "I would never hire Colin Kaepernick because he wants to stop the garbage that just happened to me a week ago." Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is the normalcy here in America for African Americans to be pulled over when they're driven through an allegedly white neighborhood. But, we've been able to afford homes in those neighborhoods for a long time to be able to drive those particular types of vehicles for decades. And so I think it's a lot more about being envious when you see an African American in a certain neighborhood or driving a certain style of vehicles that you label him as like, how did he get that legally? And I'm out here working my tail off, not understanding the plight and the sacrifices these individuals have to make to live that type of lifestyle, Charlton, just like any other American.
Yeah.
But we should not be judgmental in society, whether you're law enforcement or just a private citizen. We all pass judgment on other people, not understanding their plight. It's like we talk about often when we see homeless people on the road, on the streets. We don't know what caused that individual to get to that point in life, Charlton.
No.
What choices they made, whether they were positive or negative, or someone took advantage of them.
Yeah.
But when you're in law enforcement and you're the most powerful individual walking down the street, you can take somebody's life without having to answer a question about it, Charlton. And to feel uncomfortable as a private citizen, abiding the law, Charlton, and being pulled over by law enforcement, yet you see people breaking the law all the time, and nothing happens to them.
Yeah, and nothing happens to them. But I mean, there's a reason that God gave us Big C Sports, because it happens to so many people, and they'll show up, and I see some of my black brethren that are in broadcast, and they'll go on the air with some of these same guys that have styled that garbage, and they put their head between their tail. They say nothing, like a little boy that has a man that says, "Give me your lunch money," and you sit there with your head down, and you say nothing because you want that job so bad. But the only way you change things is to, like a sad dog won't wag his own tail. It's a pretty sad dog, Big C. I'm on the air wagging my tail because I want the next black man that happens to, and the next white brethren, especially the dumb guys that say they're disgraced by what Colin Kaepernick did, standing up for guys like myself, standing up for other people who maybe don't have the same platform. But I'm not going to sit down and let that garbage go by. A shame on those people and the next workers that keep them hired, Big C.
Well, Charlton, to respond on that point that you're talking about, when you're saying people say they would not hire Colin Kaepernick because he would not stand for the flag. But think about the Mara family of the New York Giants who hired Josh Brown for beating up his wife continuously.
20 times.
The kicker for the New York Giants over a 2-year span.
But he was white.
Beat his wife over 20 times. And she called law enforcement. And the Mara family understood what was going on because they got the police reports. They even signed him to a contract extension. There were no white reporters in the media saying, "How dare he beat his wife?
Yeah.
How dare he do this?
No.
How dare the Mara family keeps him employed and he's abusing a woman every day and terrifying her in her own home in front of her children."
Yeah.
This was a white guy that is accepted by society and all the media who bash Colin Kaepernick. There is a punter, a former NFL punter, for 2 years, 21 police reports filed by his ex-wife of him being abusive to her. And even during the Pro Bowl over in Hawaii one year, the Mara family had to move Josh Brown's wife and children out of the Hilton, where all the players stay in Hawaii, to a separate hotel and hide her from her husband to get her back to New York, so he couldn't continue beating her during the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, and I understand that, Big C, and so that's why I will never be quiet. I have a son and a daughter. I don't want them going through that garbage. I was very polite. I was very calm. But I did not get a citation. I did nothing wrong, and I was told, "Okay, well, have a nice day." It was in the evening, but I felt it in my gut, and that's why I'm telling young people, trust your gut. It won't lie to you. You might not want to hear what it's telling you, but trust it, because it can keep you safe, and always be respectful when you get pulled over, but also call 911, because it's on tape, and that may save your life. Big C, I want to touch a little bit. Tonight, you have some NFL football on Thursday night, and you have the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you have the Cleveland Browns. And how sometimes when you're talking, the universe will justify what you're going to say. I got pulled over for driving in a nice neighborhood that I live in. I didn't run from police. Baker Mayfield playing on TV tonight. He was caught running from police on tape. He didn't get shot, didn't get tasered. They just wrestled him to the ground. But he has white skin. And some of these same white guys that make a living praising black athletes, and some of the white ones too, that's a juxtaposition. Black man, nice neighborhood, nice vehicle, gets pulled over. White guy running from police, they tackle him. They didn't shoot him. They didn't tase him. Now he has a chance to play a football game tonight. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's society's woes. As we look at this game tonight in Cleveland, Charlton, between the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers, the two quarterbacks playing tonight, Mason Rudolph and Baker Mayfield, this is the first time in an NFL game that two quarterbacks who face each other in college from the same conference at Oklahoma and Oklahoma State will ever face each other in an NFL showdown. You think about just 2 years ago, Charlton, these two quarterbacks played each other in a shootout in Stillwater, Oklahoma, where these two quarterbacks combined for 15 touchdown passes between them and over 1,000 yards of offense. Oklahoma beat Oklahoma State on that night 62-52. Baker Mayfield ends up being the first overall pick in the NFL draft. That same draft, Mason Rudolph fell to the 6th round to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
If you look at the success that both of these quarterbacks are having this year, or lack of success, Charlton, Mason Rudolph has to be the better find of the two, Charlton. The Pittsburgh Steelers have won 4 consecutive games.
Yep.
The Cleveland Browns, many people thought that, hey, they might be a Super Bowl contender. Just looked up on that third victory last weekend, Charlton, against the Buffalo Bills, who showed that they are a pretender. But this is a game about the tale of two sides of the coin. When you look at Mike Tomlin, under a lot of duress from the beginning of the season, people say, maybe he's run his time in Pittsburgh. Maybe the Rooney family needs to look at another coach. An African-American coach on the unemployment line looks really good to the white media, Charlton.
Yeah.
But Freddie Kitchens is a guy who's fallen through the cracks in Cleveland. This guy was in over his head from the start, Charlton. He knew nothing about coaching grown men on the NFL level, and it's proven itself out with only 3 victories on the season. Was one of the most talented laden rosters in the NFL.
Yeah.
I like where Pittsburgh Steelers are tonight, Charlton. They're in second place in the division, on the outside looking in at the playoffs, and which is not out of reach for Mike Tomlin.
I think he's the winningest coach from November to January since 2014 over Belichick, over Reed, and even over Pete Carroll. And it's fair that people can complain and verbalize whatever's going on. If you just got to ask the question. I talked to so many smart people over the years, from lawyers to doctors, whatever it is. You just got to ask the question. You got to ask. If you don't ask it, then you can't get an answer for it. So the Steelers are 5-4, and I love what you said about Tomlin. And as another person of color, even for these radio brethren that say it's like they're calling to fire Colin Kaepernick, like, don't give this black man a chance. How dare he stand up for black people? And then they'll go to jobs and they'll get paid $1 million to talk about black men. And I'm ashamed of the black men that give these guys interviews. Unless you're just a dumb person, quit talking to these guys who are so intellectually insensitive or intellectually vapid that it actually makes it dangerous for your kids. If we as dominant men and men who have access to power, Big C, if we're going to be sycophants and afraid to stand up for our own children when we're gone, then why even have this position in life? Why even have the chance to say something? I love shouting down dumb people. That's why I do it now on the #1 podcast network in the universe. I just ask people, no matter what color you are, quit standing up and being quiet to bigotry. If someone says something bigoted, stand up to them. We just had Dolly Parton and I think Reba McEntire and a lot of people with the American Music Awards or Country Music Awards. And it was a moment for women. They were all white. Every single one of them. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but they showed such homage to white women who never gone through slavery. Jim Crow didn't affect them. They were never last hired, first fired. the wage inequality. They've always been paid more than black women. But they gave this shining moment about standing up for women when black women have always had to deal with the second and leftover stuff, Big C. I just hate when people come through on the radio and want to fire a black man or not even give him a job because he's saying, don't hurt me, don't shoot my kids, give me liberty and justice for all. That's important. And because it just happened to me recently, Big C, I'd be dumb to not say something. I want to get on this NFL thing, and you mentioned about Johnny Manziel and Patrick Mahomes. I want to rank this first decade of first-round quarterbacks. And it's important because everybody's looking for the new one. Like, I have friends that go on these dating sites. They want to date people they don't know. They're in a dating pool where you can pick 20 people a month and you can date all of them. And whatever you do, that's your business. But that's dangerous because some women get preyed upon by these men that meet up with them and then find out where they live. So you might think it's fun, but law enforcement has a different point of view on that. But I want to tie that into this, Big C. When you look at the top quarterbacks in the last decade, I want to start with number 30, Paxton Lynch, Denver Broncos. In 2016, he was a 26th overall pick. Jerry Jones said he couldn't sleep after missing out on Lynch, but John Elway got rid of him. Your thoughts?
Well, he couldn't sleep on passing up on Paxton Lynch. He had to settle for Dak Prescott.
Yep.
And we see how that has turned out. Dak Prescott, a fourth-round draft pick. Paxton Lynch, a first-round draft pick who is out of the NFL.
Yep.
And when you look at Dak Prescott, he's been the winningest quarterback in the NFL since he's been drafted.
It's amazing. I mean, it's amazing. You got to, that gut instinct that I had that told me that I was going to get pulled over. You would think a guy who's a billionaire has the same kind of instinct, but he missed it on that one. And the universe gave him Prescott, Big C, number 29, Johnny Manziel, Cleveland Browns. I remember how this same kid had such bad character, but he kept given opportunities. Caucasian quarterback. Cleveland Browns 2014, 22nd overall pick. The only good thing you can say about Manziel's time in Cleveland is that somehow he wasn't even the Browns' worst first-round selection that year. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he wasn't. They drafted a running back out of Alabama, Trent Richardson. Neither one of these players are in the NFL, Charlton. They ended up both going up north to the CFL and couldn't even make it in Canada.
Couldn't make it in Canada. You got to be fast in Canada. The field's wider and longer, Big C, number 28. The great Josh Rosen, Arizona Cardinals. This kid went to St. John Bosco High School in Southern California and also UCLA, and he was kind of a kid with a silver spoon in his mouth. But once you get rid of all of that stuff, he hasn't made it the same level in the NFL. 10th overall pick, the Browns, the Jets, and the Bills might eventually really regret thinking that they're quarterback in this draft ahead of Lamar Jackson. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, Josh Rosen has proven all these so-called expert GMs wrong, Charlton. He said that he was going to make the first the first three teams who passed on him regret it. They're regretting it, Charlton, that they didn't let him go a little further.
They let him go a little further. And again, with that same talk, and not even everybody showing up for Kaepernick, I mean, if you get an opportunity to play NFL ball, play it. I don't care what day of the week they tell you to show up. But I know Michael Strahan said a lot of times that people will come in on Tuesday to give them a tryout. They don't do it on Saturday. People are already at the stadium they're going to play out of town. But it's all fair and love and war, Big C. Number 27, Mitchell Trubisky, Chicago Bears, 2017, second-round pick. There's a lot of angry fans in Chicago who would argue that this pick is the 30th, considering they are not only traded away the 4th pick to move up one spot to select a 3rd overall ACC quarterback with 12 stars. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about Mitch Trubisky and the woes that he is going through in Chicago, Charlton, and how this fan base is so disappointed in one of the most loyal fan bases in all of the NFL.
Yep.
The two quarterbacks that were selected behind him, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson. You say whether the Chicago made a good decision or not.
They call it the Windy City for politics, not because it's cold, Big C. Number 26, Jake Locker, Tennessee Titans, 2011. He was the 8th pick. Locker looked like a future franchise quarterback from the moment he arrived at the University of Washington Huskies. He went 9-14 as a starter for the Tennessee Titans. Big C, your thoughts?
And Charlton, he was Andrew Luck before Andrew Luck. Mentally, he could not take the game. He knew that the stage was too big for him, and he retired before he even got to his 4th season in the NFL.
Yeah, it's amazing. I thought he was a good-looking athlete up at Washington. but sometimes when you're in that bracket of the NFL, a lot of things change, Big C. Number 25, Christian Ponder, Minnesota Vikings, 2011, 12th overall pick. The Vikings long searched for a franchise quarterback. It might have caused them to overreach, Big C, and they took Ponder as the 4th quarterback off of the board that year of the draft. I always thought that was a bad choice, and it seems it pulled out that way. Your thoughts?
Well, he mesmerized everybody with the Vikings taking Christian Ponder out of Florida State.
Yep.
He had done nothing in college to warrant even being picked in the top 3 rounds, Charlton. The Vikings wasted a draft pick, a lot of money, and a lot of time on it.
Yeah, they wasted a lot of time. Here's a guy that I was so sold on when he played down at Baylor. Robert Griffin III, RG3, Redskins, 2012, 2nd pick. And the hype was real when Washington, sent that number 3 first-round pick and the 2nd to St. Louis at the time, the Rams, for the rights to select the Heisman Trophy winner. And I still think if it were not for that injury, that he would still be one of the better quarterbacks in the league, Big C. That's my opinion. Your thoughts?
Well, Mike Shanahan has to take the blame for what happened to Robert Griffin III. The man had a torn-up knee. You put him out on one of the worst playing surfaces in the NFL in FedEx Field, and he tears up the knee again, Charlton, which it was a spiral downfall of his career.
Yeah, it really was. And you hate seeing guys that are that talented not being protected or in the right system. Here's another guy that's like a sailboat. He just stays afloat. Blake Bortles, number 23, Jacksonville Jaguars. The highest, you think about this, the highest bust not named is Trubisky. RG3, Bortles is the prime example of why you never draft a guy just because he looks like that prototypical quarterback that they used to like in the NFL. That's changing, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, there's a common thing amongst the white quarterbacks, Charlton, that you've named on this list. Trubisky, Rosen, Bortles. These guys look like what was a prototypical NFL quarterback 20 years ago. But the game has evolved and changed. And you see how these guys, because they look good, don't mean that they can play good.
And looks are in the eye of the beholder, Big C. Number 22, E.J. Manuel, Buffalo Bills, 2013. The 16th pick in the 2013 draft was such a bad one for the quarterbacks that the Bills were able to trade down from the original spot, and they still got Manuel, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Manuel was a bust from day one. Another one of those kids out of Florida State, Charlton, just could not grasp the NFL game, and the speed was too much for him, and he ended up out of the NFL.
It's amazing how you can go back, and it's not that long ago. And I want people to just think about these names as we pull up, and you can Google it. We're not making this stuff up. And for many people that say, well, why give Colin Kaepernick a chance? He only went to the Super Bowl with the 49ers and led them to their last conference championship and their last Super Bowl. And people don't want to give him a job because he says, quit killing black kids and quit harassing black men and women. And that makes him anathema to the league. It's amazing how many bigots have a job on the air, Big C. Blaine Gabbert, number 21, Jacksonville Jaguars, 2011, 10th overall pick. The Jaguars traded toothpicks to Washington, so they moved up and took Gabbert, who went 5 for 22. Big C, 5 for 22 as a starter. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Blaine Gabbert looked real good. It's the theme of these quarterbacks, Charlton, coming out of Missouri. This is the guy who followed Chase Daniels, who's been a career backup in the NFL at Missouri. His passing statistics as a senior are only half of what Chase Daniels was, but Jacksonville felt that they could spend a 5th-round draft pick on him, Charlton.
Yep.
They could have kept those 5th-round draft picks and drafted a football player.
Yeah, 5 and 22. You almost got to try to lose if you're 5 and 22. Now, the next player that, and I want to draw this Colin Kaepernick, Tim Tebow thing, because Tim Tebow talks about being religious and Christianity and all that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But Colin Kaepernick does the same thing. They both stood for justice and equality. If Jesus, said, I am my brother's keeper, and then if you love me, feed my sheep. When Colin Kaepernick tried to defend the sheep, if you understand the religious perspective, people wanted to fire him. They said, don't give him a chance. Well, Tim Tebow, he's become somewhat America's darling at a time. Denver Broncos 2010, 25th pick overall, and you could label someone a bust when most objective people know that he was not going to be good in the first place, but he did lead the Broncos to a playoff game. Big C, your thoughts?
What Tim Tebow did at the time when he was in the NFL is what many mobile African-American quarterbacks are doing now. Deshaun Watson.
Yep.
Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. These guys brought mobility to the game, but the NFL did not want to see a status quo white quarterback being that type of athlete in the NFL.
Yeah, he was really like a Steve Young, a little bit bigger, stronger, and faster, and they still gave him a chance to play baseball. Number 19, Brandon Weeden, Cleveland Browns, 2012. Big C, he's a 22nd pick. The Browns were the only team to take 3 quarterbacks in the first round in this decade. But Brandon Weeden was one of them, and it helps to explain it, Big C. He didn't have the success that they thought he was going to have. Your thoughts?
This is another quarterback that Jerry Jones said he was sad that he missed on. But this is a common theme for the Cleveland Browns. Spend a first-round draft pick on a quarterback, watch your franchise spiral in the opposite direction, Jones.
And it has done that. I know I'm very passionate today. I love just when things are real. We have talks of impeachment. You know, our thoughts and prayers are out to the families in Santa Clarita, California. Had another school shooting. I don't know why they brought POTUS on to talk about what he dislikes about it. He never gave back the $30 million that the NRA gave him. So that's just grandstanding when you come on and talk, but don't give up the $30 million. But I still hope and pray that none of this happens again. It's just so unfortunate. I want to say I'm going to come up on what's called the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause. And when I come back, we're going to talk more about football and some of these guys that were drafted and given an opportunity that they don't want Kaepernick to have the same opportunity, Big C. We'll take the pause and be right back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause, and you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe on iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on my 2 favorite apps called Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can also follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television and launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and other smart TVs all over the universe. I want to get into another guy who was a star player in Florida at Florida State, Jameis Winston. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 2015 first pick. Winston might be the only player, Big C, on this list who had a team tank so they could select him. I still like his potential, though, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's similar to the potential of the other quarterbacks that have come out of Florida State, Christian Ponder, E.J. Manuel, Charlton. They come into the NFL with a lot of high praise, first-round draft picks. Winston, first overall draft pick. And yet he still has not delivered the good. He's a very turnover-prone NFL quarterback.
Yeah, he's got to figure that out, Big C. Number 17, Marcus Mariota, Tennessee Titans. I remember him at Oregon, how good he was. He was one of those run-pass options as well. Not a big, tall guy, but he was sturdy and he was accurate passing. The Tennessee Titans in 2015, the second pick. And it wasn't long ago that we were arguing whether Winston or Mariota would be the better pro, if you recall, Big C, back in the day.
Well, when Mariota was drafted by the Titans, Charlton, I thought that they would implement the offense that they're doing in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
That's the type of prototypical quarterback that he was. They tried to make him a drop-back passer. It hasn't been successful.
No, it hasn't been successful yet, Big C. And it's still a lot of guys that they give up on, but sometimes it's just a system. We know that can be a difference also. Number 16, Daniel Jones, New York Giants, 2019, 6th-round pick. He was mocked by the Giants took him. He was mocked by a lot of people. They took him ahead of projections. Now, Jones won some fans with some solid performances out of the gate as a starter, but that may have been because they were so used to seeing Eli struggle down the last part of his career. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you know as a kid how you play in the sandbox, you get it wet, and you see these little sparkling nuggets, and you think it's gold, and they call it fool's gold. Yep. That's what the Giants did when they drafted Daniel Jones. They got some fool's gold.
Yeah, speaking of fool's gold, you see kids, kids do silly things. You got a lot of parks around North California, and the leaves are falling now. And you'll see kids making, it's not snow angels, but leaf angels in the park. Now, some people don't clean up behind their dogs in the park, and you see these kids come up with little golden nuggets on their hands, so be careful when you're making leaf angels in the park, Big C. Speaking of another leaf angel that the New York Jets may have found as well. Number 15, you think Sam Darnold, New York Jets, 2018 third pick overall. And you think about it, he showed a lot of promise out of USC, even though he was told to stay a little bit longer at USC, and he said, no, I'm not going to stay at USC. I'm going to go get some money. But he's taken a back step, and I just want to get your thoughts on Darnold. He looks like he still should be in college. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he had a bad case of mononucleosis. Also, he had a bad case of Adam Gates.
Yep.
I don't know which one has been more detrimental to him.
Well, he may have been one of those guys on those dating sites meeting women you don't know. How many people can they kiss in 1 month? And now he's meeting with them. That's my opinion. You got to be careful who you're sucking on out in this society, Big C. Number 14, Dwayne Haskins, Washington Redskins, 2019. 15 pick is what it was. And the guess here is that Haskins won't pan out. A lot of people thought that, but I think he will. The Redskins also believe that. They have a chance to do something that they were doing with Alex Smith, and that was winning. And we know Alex Smith ended his career with a gruesome leg injury. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Redskins haven't put Dwayne Haskins to the test, Jonathan. They have not worked with him, given him an opportunity to take over the starting realm. He's going to start for the Skins the rest of the season. They're going to find out what they have in their first overall draft pick.
Yeah, I just hope, he reminds me of a Doug Williams throwing the ball, but he can run. Doug Williams wasn't out a running quarterback, but they still similar kind of stature. And I don't forget the 5 touchdown passes that he had against the Broncos in the Super Bowl. Number 13, Sam Bradford, St. Louis Rams at the time, 2010 first pick. The first quarterback selected this decade was a Heisman winner out of Oklahoma, Big C. He got 3 seasons as a starter for the Rams and 2 more with the Eagles and the Vikings, but never really panned out the way they thought he would. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Sam Bradford got hurt just walking onto a football field. They could never keep him healthy.
Yep.
As soon as he take a snap, he would go down, Charlton, and that's been the story of his career, and now it has him out of the NFL.
And again, as we mention these people, just count how many have been to a Super Bowl, like Colin Kaepernick, and how many people were still given time to go to another team and at least get the opportunity. And that's still, I want to shout down every knucklehead, every fascist, every bigot that has these dog whistle words that nobody calls him on. Oh, I wouldn't hire him because he wouldn't stand for the flag. Garbage. I don't know how people get their jobs when they're that bigoted, Big C. Number 12, Josh Allen, who also has some racial epithets in his background. And they said, well, he misunderstood what he was doing. No, he knew, but it got him a job anyway. Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills, 2018, 7th pick overall. Think about it. But Allen has been a tiny bit better than people expected. Or could it be their defense is better and it makes it easier on them, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, their defense is better in Buffalo, much improved. Josh Allen has been fool's gold. We're trying to find out if the Bills are a contender or a pretender. They could not even score a touchdown against the Cleveland Browns last week.
And let me ask you a question, because I know Buffalo is a great sport town. It really is a great city for sports. And they want, for the Jim Kelly days, I think they went to the AFC Championship game. I think it was 4 years in a row and 4 years in a row in the Super Bowl. And they're yearning for that, Big C, the days of Thurman Thomas and the days where their defense was always something to write home about. How did they lose to Cleveland? We'll find out tonight if Cleveland is better or they're still a bad team. And I want to get your opinion. How did they lose that game? Your thoughts?
You got to be able to throw the ball at some point. Josh Allen could just not muster any offense for his team, Charlton. He was a guy who had played great up until that point of the season, Charlton, running into the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns had an outstanding defensive performance. Their offense had little to do with their victory.
That's a very good point. Big C, I want to get into the final 11, and then everybody has their opinion. That is like breathing. You don't need someone's permission to breathe, and you don't need another person's permission to have your own opinion. All we say is Google our opinions. Just Google it and see if we're credible. Number 11, Kyler Murray, Arizona Cardinals, 2019 first pick. The Cardinals ignored all the maxims about a short quarterback not succeeding in the NFL, and it worked out so far. There's a thing called intuition. In the animal kingdom, the animals that stay alive, they use their gut, their intuition. It's the same thing in life, Big C, and sometimes the intuition of a GM can make the right choice, and I think Murray's going to show that he's the right choice. Your thoughts?
Well, Kyler Murray will continuously get better in the NFL. What the Arizona Cardinals need to do is improve their offense and defensive lines to help this young man have a long and illustrious career in the NFL.
And I think he will have that. And a guy on stage tonight, and again, I wish everybody the best. Baker Mayfield, Cleveland Browns, 2018 first pick. He saw is he the new Brett Favre? A lot of people want to compare to that. I don't think so. The personal gunslinger in Brett Favre, and then you look at Mayfield, who stars in everybody's ad. It seems like he's always on commercials now. Will he join that long list of failed Browns quarterback since Bernie Kosar? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he's trending that direction. When we talked about Browns quarterbacks since Bernie Kosar, you had Tim Couch, you've had Brandon Whedon, you had another kid Johnny Manziel.
Yeah,
there was also another one, Charlton, that a lot of people forgot about. Brady
Quinn,
kid out of Notre Dame.
Yeah, Brady Quinn.
That was the number one draft pick of the Browns, the 22nd overall pick, Brady Quinn.
Yeah.
So when you look at the history of the Browns, there's something about the water in Cleveland that they're on Lake Erie that has a quarterback slipping.
Yeah.
In the polls, as a player.
And we're not making fun of the water system in Cleveland, but sometimes it makes you go, And again, that thing with everybody has a right to pursue liberty and justice for all. And as people have given, if you just think about what's happened with Cleveland and you look at what's going on with that city, they've been a basketball, I think with LeBron James, they went to the finals every year that he was there, at least when he came back from joining with the Miami Heat. I mean, they're just a team that's loving their sports, and I look forward to them having success. I want to go to number 9. You can't really feel bad for a guy because he has an opportunity to get an NFL paycheck. But when you know he's good enough to start on about 30 of the 32 teams in the league, that's number 9, Teddy Bridgewater, Minnesota Vikings, 2014. He was the 32nd pick, Big C. Bridgewater made the Pro Bowl in 2015, and he looked to be a steal in the draft when he shredded his knee in the offseason, and I hate it when that happened. But this kid, he would have had his first playoff victory. They were playing the Seahawks, and their kicker missed the field goal. They were playing outside up in Minnesota. I just think that he's so talented, and there's a lot of pressure this year, maybe behind the scenes with Drew Brees saying, look, Drew, we love what you've done, but this is a guy that we can't keep holding him back or he's going to be gone to another team, and I think he's going to leave anyway. Your thoughts?
Perseverance is what you would describe Teddy Bridgewater, Charlton. Here's a man with a horrific leg injury. Many people thought his career was over, but he fought back, Charlton, and gallantly got back into the NFL. Now he's proven his mettle. 5-0 as a starter this year when Drew Brees broke his thumb.
Yeah, it's amazing. And to come back from a knee surgery like that, and then you compare him with RG3, and I mean, everybody knows that injuries are different, but I really appreciate someone that has that staying power to fight through the adversity. I want to get your thoughts on this next player, Big C. Number 8, Ryan Tannehill, Miami Dolphins. In 2012, he was the 8th pick. Tannehill's a true divider for this. Think about this. Nearly everyone that came before him is either unproven or a relative bust, but he kept getting opportunities. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, and that's what Ryan Tannehill is doing right now, getting another opportunity with the Tennessee Titans. They benched Marcus Mariota for Ryan Tannehill. But we saw where his career went in Miami. It was injury plague and also a consistent loser.
Yeah, all the time. And if anyone thinks that Colin Kaepernick is not as good as this guy or better, there's a quiz I want to give you. I had a coach that used to give us a quiz all the time. Just raise your hand if you can name the player that took his team to the Super Bowl, Colin Kaepernick or Ryan Tannehill. Just do it. And you can even Google that. Big C, number 7, Jared Goff. The LA Rams, 2016, the first pick. And did we say that everyone after Tannehill was a successful pick? Think about this. The kid came out of Cal Berkeley. Always thought he was a little bit too skinny. He has a good arm, but he's fragile. He's not a run-pass option. So he's a one-dimensional quarterback, kind of like the old guys that they're not looking forward to anymore in the NFL draft. It's just my opinion. Big C, your thoughts on the great Jared Goff?
Well, when you look at the Los Angeles Rams, Charles, you have to be careful what you wish for. You want to make a franchise quarterback and pay him franchise money. That means you have to lose players, Charlton. The Rams lost 2 offensive linemen and a running back.
Yep.
They were integral in the success of Jared Goff. Those guys are gone. He's not as comfortable as he was last year, and you see it in the statistics and the Rams winning percentage.
Yeah, you do see that. And if you don't run the ball in the NFL, it's going to be hard to win no matter how much you want to build up that quarterback. We started this segment, Big C, talking about from Manziel to Patrick Mahomes, and in between you have Colin Kaepernick, who he was just like Patrick Mahomes when they gave him a chance and he had a good offensive line, and he had good people around him. I'm not making excuses for anybody. If you can play, you get the opportunity as long as people let you compete for it, and I hope everybody succeeds, Big C. Number 6, Carson Wentz, Philadelphia Eagles, 2016. The second pick, think about this. Philadelphia had to trade a sweet package of picks to Cleveland for the number 2 spot, and it's proven worth it so far, but I think the book is still out. In my opinion, it's still out on Carson Wentz, Big C. Your thoughts?
And you think about that, Cleveland could have had Carson Wentz, Charlton, and they chose to pass up on him. Philadelphia said, thank you very much. They've gone to a Super Bowl, even though he was hurt during that time, Charlton. Yeah. But they're competitive in the NFC East, where Cleveland has not been competitive in the AFC Central.
Yeah, and if you were to take these two teams, whether it's Cleveland and Philadelphia, Philly's had more success in winning. So we talk about that gut instinct. It's amazing how people who are successful, they tend to have successful throughout their whole life. It doesn't mean you don't go through things. Every king goes through something. Every king has scars. Every heavyweight champion, they've been beaten up at some time, either in their youth or even in their earlier part of the career, but they kept getting better. I mean, except for Floyd Money Mayweather. Nobody's whooped him big except for the court system. I want to look at number 5, Lamar Jackson. And when I look at Lamar Jackson, and I hear people say, don't give Colin Kaepernick a job because he stood up for Black Lives Matter, and he stood up for women who were battered, and he stood up for kids who are hungry, and he stood up for people who are dealing with police injustice and injustice in society and injustice in the workforce, and he stood up for women who are underpaid, and he gave $1 million to feed people, and they don't want him to get a job because of that. It's amazing. Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens. In 2018, think about this, what he's doing now. The 32nd pick, where other teams saw a quarterback who might be limited by his passing skills, the Ravens saw an opportunity, Big C, to take an exceptional quarterback and then mold their offense around his image. We started this show talking about people don't want to hire Colin Kaepernick. Some of our white brethren who are such bigots, it's amazing they have a job. Maybe their PR or their GM is a bigot also. To have someone that intellectually vapid to say this guy wouldn't stand for a flag when it had nothing to do with that. Everybody has a right to say what they want to say. But he's the same kind of talent that Kaepernick is, and Lamar Jackson. Everybody's praising Lamar now. He hasn't been to a Super Bowl yet, but I think he will be soon, Big C. Your thoughts?
Charlton, can you name the 4 quarterbacks that were taken in front of Lamar Jackson in that draft?
It's amazing.
Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Josh Allen. None of those quarterbacks, Charlton, has had a winning season in the NFL.
No.
Josh, when you look at Lamar Jackson, Charlton, he had a winning season in his rookie year.
Yeah.
He has a winning season in his second year. None of those 4 quarterbacks elected in front of him, Charlton, will eclipse the numbers that he's had.
And they won't. And I just hope, and again, we pull for stats. It's like the Everett R. Murrell Award. It's by pretty much mainstream media, so we won't get it because we're too honest. But you can be an intellectually vapid person and just shout out stuff that's not even verifiable, and they'll consider you for that award. We don't need someone to give us an award. We give it to ourselves by you Googling what we say. That's the award that we're asking for. And I just hope that Jackson continues to have success in this league because it opens up doors for so many people. It's also validation for a lot of other African-American quarterbacks who were made to switch their position, are not even drafted at all, Big C. When you get the chance to compete, just like Colin Kaepernick, and they take the handcuffs off, then you can win. The same thing said about Colin Kaepernick, always washed up, he can't compete. And you have white guy after white guy that's so sorry, you can Google their records, and they habitual losers, but they're habitually getting millions of dollars. You can Google that. Just Google it. Don't get mad at what we're saying. Big C, number 3, Andrew Luck. I've always liked him out of Stanford. Indianapolis Colts, 2012 first pick. Luck, he's the only can't-miss quarterback to enter the draft this decade, and he backed it up for 6 seasons that he played. I know this man, he quit the business because his body was banged up. His body was hurt, Big C. Not because he didn't have courage, not because he didn't want to, he lost a passion. He had a hard time functioning, physically and emotionally, and I will always respect people who fight through the current. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, and that's what Andrew Luck represented. You know, we give out the suicide prevention hotline number for people that are dealing with pain and agony emotionally and physically in their life. Andrew Luck was a great candidate for that. He said, I was no longer willing to sacrifice my long-term health for the short-term joy of other people.
Yeah, and that's true. And you got to respect the person that does that. And it's just amazing that we have a league where he can make so much money in a few years, he doesn't really need to keep playing and getting injured for it, Big C. Number 2, Cam Newton, Carolina Panthers. Remember this young kid at Auburn University. Also, I believe he won a national championship in junior college as well. But 2011, the first pick, Cam Newton, his physical style of play, it makes him older than his actual age, 30, because he's been beaten up over the years. But it's amazing. It seems as if his time with the Panthers has maybe expired because of contract, not because he doesn't have the talent to play. He's still good, but he may find greener pastures elsewhere. Just my opinion, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, if you look at Cam Newton, he was Lamar Jackson before Lamar Jackson, Charlton. So Lamar Jackson is nothing new that we've seen in the NFL. Time has caught up with Cam Newton with a multitude of injuries. He's had the same injuries that Andrew Luck has had with the shoulder and with the ankle, Charlton. And, you know, Cam Newton will continue to strive in the NFL.
Yeah.
He's a great player. He's been an MVP. He's been to a Super Bowl. But this just shows the character of the great players that you have named on this list thus far, Charlton.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, there's a common theme. Quarterbacks, the most successful quarterbacks on the list that you have named have all been African American.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why, before we get to the last guy, and I mean, I don't care if I offend people, because if I'm wrong, then I should be embarrassed and I should apologize. If you ever step on another man's shoes, say I'm sorry. Don't say I didn't step on your shoes. If someone steps on your shoes, then they should apologize. And I know a lot of people are too afraid to stand up for what they were taught growing up. I just say Google it. But I love the fact that you can have a sports program. We're on every platform that every person in the universe is on. No matter what their name is, you can find Big C Sports, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Xfinity, Comcast TV. It's out there. So for people that say, well, I can't really speak truth to mainstream because they may not like me. Well, they don't like you anyway. You're just being a sycophant. But I refuse, Big C. I refuse to be just reading scores. You can see that on 100 stations out there. But I want to make sure that at the end of my lifetime, and I'm going to live to be over 100, I'm going to choose to do that. But I want to make sure that some young person who gets pulled over, a young black boy or girl, that they have someone that told them how to act. And that, I want that to be Big C Sports. I don't want it to be, well, they got to hope that their parents do it. Some of their parents don't have the ability to do it. I don't want them to wait for some of their heroes on TV to do it. I mean, some athletes say they're not a role model, and maybe they're not. But at least if they hear Big C Sports, if you're in that real situation, it's bigger than who won a game. It's when your gut's telling you something's wrong, and that CHP or that cop pulls up behind you and turns on his lights, and he's up to no good, and you know it because you did nothing wrong. I want them to hear that Big C Sport is not afraid to get on a sports show and talk about how to behave so you don't end up shot. So you don't end up, I'm sorry, we're going to give them our thoughts and prayers. I don't need your thoughts and prayers. I want people to understand, tell mainstream, stop profiling black men. Period. If you got the chance to say it, you should say it. That's my opinion. God says everyone has a right to their own opinion. Number one, Pat, and I want to get your thoughts, Big C, because it still bothers me what happened to me the other day, and I hear white men on TV saying, I won't hire Colin Kaepernick, he stands up for black people. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's unfortunate, the plight of black people in America, Charlton, what you have to face daily just driving down the street, trying to get to work, trying to get home, trying to get to the grocery store, that you're often profiled. I've dealt with that for decades, Charlton, because of the type of vehicles that I've driven in my size. You know, I was always bothered by that emotionally, that I could not function in America as an American citizen. I had to be labeled basically as a criminal because I was driving a certain type of vehicle. They're like, well, how did you get a car like this? I bought it the same way anybody else would.
Yep.
You know, to be said that you went through a stop sign on a rolling stop when you stopped and looked both ways, then took off, Charlton. All of these things that black people have had to deal with throughout the history of America, not being treated as an American citizen. And I know they're not just isolated cases, Charlton, because I've lived it many years in my life as well as others that have been less fortunate than I have been. So to be able to understand and handle the situation, we should not have to do that as people. We should not have to be downtrodden and denigrated just because of our race.
And I love that you say that. And we don't want to be dumb just saying, hey, man, how big and strong is this guy? Oh, this guy's bigger and stronger and faster. Enough of that garbage. It won't keep your kids alive. Big C, number 1, Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs, 2017, the 10th pick. Now, this list is littered with GMs who fell in love with the quarterback prospect and traded away a lot of them for the draft capital, Big C. Now, think about this. These guys were disappointed because they passed on a lot of guys. Guys like Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, because they could not imagine how their unique skill sets to translate into the pro game, and it does. And I want to get your feeling on why he's such a dominant athlete. Your thoughts?
Well, he's one of those players, again, Charlton, that these GMs passed on. When you talk about Patrick Mahomes, all the teams, there were 9 teams that passed on him, Charlton, including the Chicago Bears, who took Mitch Trubisky in that draft.
Yeah.
You look at Deshaun Watson, Charlton, 11 teams passed on him before he was taken by the 12th pick in the Houston Texans. Russell Wilson went 3 rounds, Charlton, and the NFL said, well, we don't want to spend any time or money on him.
Yep.
Lamar Jackson, 31 teams passed on Lamar Jackson, saying that he did not fit as an NFL quarterback. So when we see the success of the African-American quarterbacks that you talked about drafted, Charlton, in the NFL in the last decade, and people say, okay, we're looking for a franchise quarterback. Yes, there's been some failures, Charlton, but the success ratio has been a lot higher than the white quarterbacks.
And we just say Google it. No matter if the one thing I love about radio, you can't redact what we say. If we're wrong, people can Google and say, man, those guys are dumb. They don't even know what they're talking about. So we ask you to do that for everybody, especially mainstream radio broadcasters who say they can't understand why Colin Kaepernick took a stance to try to end people harming black boys. I mean, and I want to say one more thing to our NFL brethren, whether you hire this man or not. I hope that the universe will give you the chance to have your young white kids come home and say, Dad, Mom, I was profiled by law enforcement. I was pulled over, and they ran my plates. They took my license, and they kept me in the car for 10 minutes, and I did nothing wrong. I hope that happens to your grandkids so you can stop saying don't give Colin Kaepernick a job. If that happened to you, you know you'd be down there at the police department writing a letter. Big C, Major League Baseball, Cody Bellinger wins National League MVP. He's the first Dodgers to do it since, I think, 1988, the great Kirk Gibson. Big C, your thoughts?
Yeah, Charlton, it's been a long drought for the Los Angeles Dodgers, 31 years since they had a everyday player win the MVP trophy, and Kirk Gibson did that also, Charlton. And Kirk Gibson that year, they beat the Oakland A's in the World Series for the Dodgers' last World Series win. The Dodgers haven't been able to get there in the last 3 years. They've been the top winningest team in the National League, but it is not translated into a World Series championship. But to even go a little further with that, Charlton, Mike Trout won his 3rd American League MVP. You think about that. 3-time American League MVP winner. And Mike Trout has only played 9 seasons of Major League Baseball. That is the fastest of 3 MVPs in Major League Baseball history, Charlton. The next closest to win 3 MVPs did it over a 14-year span.
That's amazing. The Houston Astros using some artificial intelligence and technology still in signs. In the year they won the World Series, it's all fair 11 word, Big C. People do what they got to do to win. We talked about artificial intelligence being used, for broadcast, for podcasts. A lot of teams use it too. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Speaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television, also launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. I want to get in, before we close out, NBA basketball. And, we talked about the best players in the game, and Harden's dropping 47 points. Kawhi Leonard's in that same court getting only 22. There was not too long ago, people were saying that Kawhi is the best player in the universe. But when you go up against Harden, Big C, if you can't shoot, you're not going to outscore him, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, James Harden is a scoring machine. And the numbers that he put up, they're not going to be matched by anybody in the NBA.
Tonight, Paul George, he backing for the Clippers. I know Doc Rivers have a little fun conversation. His son called him to get a tea. Technical, Big C. It might make for, it's a little bit of tense Thanksgiving, but I know it's just fun between the father and the son. But it's nice to see Paul George. If he comes back tonight and plays well, you think it's too early, Big C, or is it just time, your thoughts?
Well, he was supposed to play last night, and he didn't get in the lineup last night. Also, when you think about the length of an NBA season and players not playing for injury or load management, this is early in the season, and, who's going to win the title this weekend?
Yeah, that's very true, Big C. Tonight's NBA schedule, not a long one. Thursday night, Big C schedule. The Miami Heat at Cleveland, Chicago at Milwaukee, Dallas at New York. We just mentioned the LA Clippers at New Orleans, Atlanta at Phoenix, and then Brooklyn at Denver. I know basketball really gets exciting after Christmas because things start shaping up more. But I love the way we're having so many sports happening this time of year. Last thing I'll state, my thought on me being pulled over as an African-American male by a white police officer for doing nothing wrong. And, in fact, I didn't get a citation. I just told have a nice day. But he had to find out who I was. I'm not saying anything about what happened other than it happens to many black people. And when I hear my white brethren, the dumb guys, that are making $1 million a year because they're watching black men and a few white guys play sports. A shame on you black men for giving these white guys interviews when they don't even advocate for keeping your kids safe. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when we look at mainstream, there's a message in what they say and a message in what they don't say. Is that they're not concerned about you in your everyday social life. They're concerned about what makes them money off the sweat and tears that you have to go through in everyday part of society in America.
Very well said, Big C. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, we got an NFL game going on in Cleveland tonight. We're going to find out if Cleveland's are pretenders or are they going to get ready for the draft.
Well, I'm sure we'll find out soon enough, but you can find out, too, every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. You can find out the truth on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, that's never ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you, on every Big C Sports Show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.